It's not about the number of arms in the bullpen. It's about balance in October. The Toronto Blue Jays made moves. Real moves. Kazuma Okamoto arrived to reshape the offensive dynamic. Tyler Rogers adds a different pitching profile. Cody Pons comes in as depth. Dylan Cease raises the ceiling of the rotation. All of that is fact. But there's one point that stayed there, kind of hidden behind the bigger headlines. The left side of the bullpen. And that's not a small detail. Right now, looking at the relief group, the available left-handers are Eric Lauer, Brendan Little, and Mason Fluharty. That's it. 3 names. And none of them, with all due respect, automatically enters a conversation of this guy closes a big game at Rogers Center with 40,000 people on their feet. Now hold on to this. Kerry Miller, from Bleacher Report, projects that the Toronto Blue Jays should trade for Jojo Romero from the St. Louis Cardinals during the middle of the 2026 season. That's not random rumor. That's market reading. Romero is coming off a 2025 season with a 2.07 ERA in 65 games, the best mark of his career. 8 saves. He showed he can handle the 9th inning if needed. And he's a lefty with experience and recent elite production. That changes the conversation. Because when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays starting rotation, it's predominantly right-handed. And that creates a domino effect. In playoff games, opponents stack left-handed hitters in strategic spots. If you don't have a trustworthy arm from the left side, you become reactive. And teams that react too much in October usually go home early. But here's the interesting part. Romero is in the final year of his contract. He'll make $4.26 million in 2026. In other words, he's a pure rental, not a long-term project, a surgical reinforcement. And that's where the discussion gets deeper. Is it worth paying assets for a player who could walk at the end of the year? It depends on where you believe the Toronto Blue Jays are. If the goal is to compete for the World Series right now, the answer changes. If the window is open, you don't protect prospects like you're rebuilding. And the signs are clear. This isn't a conservative team. The additions of Okamoto and Cease show aggression, urgency, and understanding that the competitive moment is now. Yet almost no one talks about this. Bullpens win short series. You can have a strong rotation. You can have a deep lineup. But in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, it's fresh arms that decide. And there's another detail mentioned by Miller. There's a possibility of reinforcing or even replacing Jeff Hoffman in the 9th inning. That's not an attack. That's planning. Having an alternative closer isn't excess. It's protection. Romero has already shown he can save games. 8 saves don't happen by accident. Now, picture Rogers Center in October. An opposing left-handed hitter steps in with 2 men on base. Would you rather rely exclusively on internal options or have a guy with a 2.07 ERA the year before? That's the real question. And there's more. The Cardinals are in a rebuilding phase. When a franchise commits to rebuilding, short-term assets become currency. Romero fits that profile perfectly. Final year of control, manageable salary, strong recent performance. He's exactly the type of piece that turns into prospects at the deadline. So the logic works on the other side too. Toronto needs it. St. Louis can sell. But let me flip the perspective for a second. What if the issue isn't just the number of lefties? What if it's how the bullpen is structured to face increasingly hybrid lineups? The league has evolved. Hitters aren't as vulnerable to extreme splits as they once were. So it's not enough to simply be left-handed. You need swing and miss stuff. You need to induce weak contact. You need command. The 2.07 ERA stands out. But what really matters is consistency across 65 games. Availability. Durability. That's not a 20-appearance sample. That's a full season. For a team thinking about October, that's gold. Now let's talk money. $4.26 million for 2026. In contender payroll terms, that's manageable. It doesn't compromise the future. It doesn't clog the books. It's a cost that fits inside an aggressive window. The financial risk is low. The baseball risk? That depends on the trade package. And here's the sensitive point. How much do you pay for a bullpen rental? This isn't Dylan Cease. This isn't a top rotation arm. It's a reliever, even a very good one. The balance of the deal has to reflect that. If the price is rational, it makes sense. If it turns into an emotional overpay at the deadline, that's when it hurts. But let me be direct. The Toronto Blue Jays, as currently built, can't enter October with only 3 left-handed bullpen options and assume that's enough. Not when the rotation is mostly right-handed. Not when the declared goal is a title. Not after making major moves that signal ambition. Romero isn't a cover star. He doesn't sell jerseys. He doesn't dominate national headlines. He changes matchups. And sometimes that's what decides a series. Some fans might look at it and think, it's just another arm. It's not that simple. A bullpen is architecture. You build pieces that complement each other. If one specific piece is missing, the whole structure becomes vulnerable. And there's another layer Canadian fans understand. Toronto has lived through postseasons where the details slipped away, where a different option in a critical moment was missing. Recent memory doesn't let that fade. So when an analyst projects this kind of move, it doesn't sound absurd. It sounds aligned with the competitive moment. Now pause. What if Romero doesn't come? What's plan B? Trust internal development entirely? Bet that Lauer, Little, or Fluharty takes a definitive leap? It could happen. Baseball surprises. But contenders don't build strategy on hope alone. They build on probability. And probability says adding an experienced left-hander with strong recent production increases your margin for error. It doesn't guarantee a title. Nothing does, but it reduces vulnerability. Here's the blunt summary. What does Toronto gain? Real left side depth, ninth inning flexibility, experience in tight games, strategic protection for October. What does it risk? Future assets for a short-term player, natural ERA regression, immediate performance dependency. That's it. It's not a glamorous move. It's a smart one if the price is right. And Kerry Miller's projection points exactly to that. A mid-season deal that closes an obvious gap. On paper, it fits. In competitive logic, it fits. In the urgency of this roster, it fits. But baseball isn't played on paper. It's played under pressure, under expectation, under 40,000 voices at Rogers, center demanding execution. Romero could be the quiet piece that turns a good bullpen into a playoff-ready bullpen. Or he could be just another rental who passes through and leaves. The difference lies in the front office's ambition and the courage to pay the right price. Because one thing is clear. If the Toronto Blue Jays want to play meaningful baseball in October 2026, the left side of the bullpen can't be improvised. Not this time. Now I want to hear from you, Blue Jays fan. Would you pay for that rental? Or hold your assets and bet on what's already in-house? Comment, disagree, push back. Because if the window is now, every detail matters.